Hello again. Feels like I just left you, but we're back to read some more of our story. It's Thursday evening. We have tonight and tomorrow this week to read. Um, and we are working on Ida B. and her plans to maximize fun, avoid disaster, and possibly save the world by Catherine Hannigan. Um, I know things got heavy in the book yesterday, but we're gonna believe in them. Believe in Ida B. Believe in her parents. We're gonna see what happens. Ida B is getting ready to have to go back to school after being homeschooled since her mom is sick. Her dad needs to take care of the farm. So um, she's upset about that because when she tried school in the kindergarten, she really didn't like it. She didn't like that the teacher didn't use her full name, and that there was no set structure, and she has been happy being homeschooled. Now she's in fourth grade, but she's having to go back to school, to a real public school name. So we're going to see what happens here. Hi, Mom. We're picking up with chapter 12 here. Okay. After Daddy left, I was hurting something terrible, like every single part of me was cut and torn up, but my heart hurt the most. I couldn't do anything except curl up like a ball on the floor of the barn and lie there, crying. The kind of tears that burn your eyes and the sort of sobs that make your chest ache so that you're sure it's going to bust open. When the sobs finally ran out, the tears kept coming, so I lay there with my mouth wide open, but I hardly made a sound. Just air going into me and a heavy wind full of sorrow coming out. But as I cried, my heart was being transformed. It was getting smaller and smaller in my chest and hardening up like a rock. The smaller and harder my heart got, the less I cried until finally I stopped completely. By the time I was finished, my heart was a sharp black stone that was small enough to fit in the palm of my hand. It was so hard nobody could break it and so sharp it would hurt anybody who touched it. I stayed there staring ahead at nothing, with just about nothing left inside of me, for quite a bit. And then my new heart came up with a resolution. Because when your heart changes, you change, and you have to make new plans. This resolution was for the new me, the new Ida B. All right, Daddy, I thought, I'll do what you say. I'll go back to Ernest B. Lawson Elementary School, but I won't like it. I won't like the people who buy the land, and I won't like my teacher, or the kids in my class, or the ride on the bus, and I won't like you or Mama either. I decided I would do whatever I had to, just shy of death and dismemberment, to fight the craziness that had taken over my family and was invading my valley. I'd come up with a plan, and they'd be sorry, every single one of them, that they had to reckon with Ida B. I could feel the hardness of my heart spreading into my arms and my legs and my head, and it felt fine. I would win. That night I went up the mountain and stood in front of that bare old white tree. Thank you so much for your kind words of wisdom the other day, I said, sticky sweet like corn syrup. I really took them to heart, I must say. Yep, I went on, like honey and brown sugar and molasses mixed together. I have to tell you, I was feeling much better after our little chat. I even expected great and wonderful things, thanks to your reassurance. I stood there smiling for a minute, giving the tree a chance to believe what I was saying. Then I yelled, "You stupid old tree!" and I kicked its trunk as hard as I could so my foot ached something fierce, but I didn't even whimper. I limped back down the mountain and went to bed without saying good night to anyone. And that was the end of me listening to anybody or anything other than myself and my new heart for a long time. Chapter 13. Things happened pretty fast after that. Sunday night I got my clothes ready for the next morning, black jeans, black t-shirt, black socks. And if I'd had black underwear, I'd have worn that too. Daddy packed my lunch and Mama asked me if I wanted ribbons in my hair tomorrow. No, thank you, I said, without even looking at her, because I would not dress myself up just so I could be dropped headfirst into the sacrificial pit of never-ending agony. But I didn't say that part. I went to bed, and after a couple of minutes, Mama knocked on my door and asked, "Can I come in?" Okay, I told her. She sat down on the edge of my bed and just looked at me for a while, but I stared at the ceiling like I was seeing something of the most supreme importance up there. She leaned over, put her hand on my head, and started running her fingers down my hair. I decided I was not going to enjoy that particular feeling at that particular time. My heart distracted me by reminding me over and over again. She broke her promise. She agreed with Daddy. They're sending you back. And that did the trick. Pretty soon, I felt a plunk, plunk, plunk on my pajama top, and there was a wet spot in the middle of my chest. I looked at Mama, and she had big tears rolling down her cheeks and onto me. I'm sorry, Ida B, she said. And in spite of my rock-hard heart and its resolution, I felt a lump of sadness coming up from my chest into my throat. Somehow, a whole flood of tears had snuck back into my head while my new heart was preoccupied, and they were pushing at the back of my eyes. I was done crying, though, especially in front of Mama and Daddy. My new heart told the sadness and the tears, no, you cannot come out. Go back to where you came from. But sadness is a powerful foe, maybe harder to keep down than happiness, and it was a struggle. My throat ached and my eyes felt like they might explode, but I just kept telling it, no, no, no. And eventually I could feel it retreating little by little. And I will admit that, even though I'd decided not to like Mama anymore, it was hard seeing her sadness. A part of me wanted to help it, but I knew if I said anything or touched her or moved just a bit, all the sadness in me would take that opportunity, rise back up again, and pour out, and there'd be no stopping it. We'd be lost in it forever. So I just looked at her. Finally, she bent down and kissed me and said, "Good night, baby," and went away. Chapter 14. The bus stops at the end of the drive at 7:30 sharp, Ida B, Daddy said at breakfast the next morning, even though he'd already told me that 3 times the day before. Huh, I said, which sounded more like a growl than agreement, but not so much to get me into trouble. Ida B, Mama started twice, but she never finished, and I just let it lie. After breakfast, I brushed my teeth, got my bag, walked out to the stop, and waited. I went out way ahead of time so I didn't have to talk with Mama and Daddy, so I didn't have to hear anything even closely resembling "it will be all right." It was raining and windy, but I left the umbrella Mama had put out for me closed up in my bag. That rain soaked my legs and pelted my face and my eyeballs till they hurt. But I was glad, because it just made me madder and more determined to be full-blown ornery by the time I got to school. And when the bus pulled up, I got right on without turning to see if Mama was waving from the window or if Daddy was watching from the barn. "Good morning," said the bus driver, smiling and cheerful. "Morning," I said, back like metal, cold, hard, and flat. I walked up the steps and paused at the top of the aisle. I made my eyes into slits so I'd look as mean as I felt. But when you make your eyes into slits, everything gets blurry, so everybody on that bus became blurry nobodies. Nobody I wanted to know anyway. I walked down the aisle just like that, not seeing anybody, just checking for a spot. About halfway down, I found a seat all to myself. I sat there for the whole ride, squinting at the back of the seat in front of me with laser eyes, my mouth ready to growl, my hands like sharp claws, gripping the bag in my lap, not thinking anything except, "I hate this," over and over again. 10 other kids got on the bus before we got to school, but nobody sat with me. I must have radiated foul meanness of the most terrible kind. Like there was a dark cloud of rank, revolting air around me that no one wanted to penetrate for fear of excruciating pain or agonizing injury. When we got to school, I filed off the bus and into the building with everybody else. Then I followed the signs to the office and stood in front of a big wooden counter. "Can I help you?" asked a lady I might have thought looked nice if I wanted to believe anybody here was nice, and if I could actually see her since my eyes were still like slits. "I'm Ida Applewood," I said back. "Well, Ida Applewood, what can I do for you?" Even with my blurry vision, I could tell she was smiling. You could tell it just from the sound of her voice. I hated it. "I'm new," I said, and you could tell by the sound of my voice that her happiness had not infected me. "Then let's see where you belong." "I belong at home," is what my head wanted to say before my new hard heart got a chance to quiet it. All of a sudden I could see home and smell it and feel it, and I missed it something terrible. Before I started blubbering and babbling everything to her, my heart stopped me. It reminded me that even if I didn't belong at Ernest B. Lawson Elementary School, I didn't belong at home anymore either, and I got mad all over again. "Here we are," she said, like she was telling me something pleasing. "You're in Miss Washington's class. That's room 130. Now, to get to your classroom," she went on, "you go out this door, take a left, and it's the third door on your right. It will say Miss Washington, 4th grade, on a sign outside the classroom. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, with just a bit of nasty in my voice, because at that moment, as I turned to go down the hall toward the dungeon of deadly dullness, that I was sure awaited me in room 130 of that school, I was overfilled with misery. I needed to release a little bit of it before it got to dangerous levels and burst out of me in the form of a wicked vileness that lashed out at anything in its path, including innocent kindergartners. You have a great day, Ida, that woman called after me, but I didn't say anything back. The less words, the better, I was thinking, for everyone concerned. Chapter 15. I stopped in the doorway of room 130 for a minute, just taking it in so I could do like soldiers do before a battle. Assess the enemy, formulate a plan, get armed, and attack. Some kids were still hanging up their coats, talking to each other, getting books out, making happy sounds. Outside the sun was starting to come out, and it was shining in the windows. There were rainbows and pictures and big colorful words on the bulletin boards. There was even a pretty rug at the far end of the room where there were no desks, only shelves of books that looked like real books, not school books. All that was missing were bluebirds and chirpy music. And there was Miss Washington, I figured, sitting in a kid's chair with her chin resting in her hand, listening to some girl who was picking her fingers and talking at the same time. I could tell this was a warm place. Not a warm temperature place, but a warm feeling inside place. Some part of me knew it, but my heart refused to feel it. So I kept looking around, making a list of everything in my head so I could use it if I had to, for my plan to be unknown, uninvolved, and uninterested. Well, hello, I heard a low, friendly voice say. I looked over to where the voice came from, and there was Miss Washington staring right at me and heading straight for me. That woman was like a truck, big and powerful and directed, but she moved smoothly and soundlessly, like a top-of-the-line luxury model. Are you Ida? She asked, smiling as she came toward me. And I was so surprised by her voice and her size, and that I could feel her even when she was 20 feet away, that I just stood there for a bit. When I gathered myself together, all I could do was nod. Welcome, Ida. I'm Miss Washington, she said, and she put out her hand to shake mine. I gave her my hand not because I wanted to, but because I wasn't thinking straight. Miss Washington turned out to be nothing like I had expected had temporarily disrupted my assessment of the enemy and my plan, but not for long. I watched my hand go up and down like a pump handle. Why don't you take off your coat and hang it up, and then I'll show you around, she said. So I headed to the coat room and had myself back in fighting form by the time I got back to her. Everyone, this is Ida Applewood, and she's going to be in our class from now on, Miss Washington told the kids in the room. Hi, Ida, they all chimed. I stood there and gave them the blank-faced, Miss America the Miserable, flat hand up and back down again wave. Why don't you each tell Ida your name and something about yourself, Miss Washington said. There was a girl named Patrice who had a sparkly shirt, sparkly fingernails, and sparkly barrettes too, and said her best friend was Simone. There was a boy named Calvin who told me his favorite thing in the world was homework, and then he grinned real big at Miss Washington. And there was a girl named Claire who said she liked to read and play with her friends and go on trips with her family, and she would show me around if I wanted. There was a whole bunch of other ones too, and they were all smiling like they were happy to meet me, happy to be there, and it was all I could do to look at them and be polite. You poor suckers, I wanted to say, and I don't usually use that sort of language. You just don't know any better, but I know the deal. Ida, is that the name you go by, or do you have a nickname you like to use? I heard Miss Washington ask. Now I knew Miss Washington was talking to me, but I couldn't believe she was asking me that particular question. Like she was trying to tell me that all of those tribulations with Miss Myers were just a bad dream. That this bright, cheerful place was what school was really like, and tomorrow it was going to rain silver dollars, too. She looked so sincere and caring, I almost wanted to almost believe her, but I didn't. And I wouldn't in 1.5 million years. No, just Ida, I said. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about yourself, she asked me. Well, there were a few things my mouth was itching to share. But I quickly decided that saying I hate school and anything that goes with it, and I completely expect that being a student in this class will suck the life out of me before the end of this week, on the first day back at Ernest B. Lawson Elementary School, probably wasn't the best plan, even though it might be the most truthful. No, ma'am, is all I said. Well, all right, Miss Washington said back, sounding a little disappointed but not pushing it. Let's begin. And it was all okay. Not good, but not the most terrible, excruciating, utterly painful experience ever. Nobody bothered or picked on me. They smiled at me and I just looked straight at them, my face blank like they weren't even really there, which is the most effective technique for making people uncomfortable and ensuring that you will have no friends. I did the worksheets, lined up, followed directions, answered when I was called on, didn't talk out of turn, and it was just fine. Better than being buried in an anthill with a boa constrictor around your neck and lima beans stuffed in your mouth. At recess, we went outdoors. I sat on the steps just outside the back entrance, put my chin on my knees, and watched nothing. One of the girls from my class, the one named Claire, ran over, stopped in front of me, and asked, "You want to play with us, Ida?" "No," I said right away without thinking about it, because that was my plan. No friends, no play, no smiling, no happy. "Okay," she said back, looking surprised and maybe hurt, and walked away. And I did feel a little bad about not even trying to be nice. But I knew I was right, because here's the thing. How do you run and play when you feel like there are bricks of the heaviest sadness weighing down every part of your body? How do you laugh and talk when there are no laughs left inside of you? Just when I'd been sitting on those concrete steps for so long my back end was numb, Miss Washington came over and sat down beside me. So close I could feel the warmth coming out of her. I could smell peanut butter and summer flowers on her too. "How's it going, Ida?" she said, matter of fact, looking straight ahead, just like me. "Okay." "Anything you want to talk about?" she asked. I stuck with my standard response. "No, ma'am." "Well," she said, "when you want to talk, I'm ready to listen. And while I do believe that statement is number 5 on the top all-time silliest things grown-ups say list, Miss Washington didn't sound too silly when she said it." Miss Washington gave me a minute to soften up and give in, because she didn't know about my heart and its resolution, and that she was dealing with a mighty and unbending will. "I'll see you inside then," she finally said after a good stretch of silence. And she touched my arm as she got up, just enough so I felt it after she was gone, but not so much that I minded. "Yes, ma'am," I replied. Chapter 16. The yellow prison of propulsion dropped me off just where it had picked me up that morning. "See you tomorrow," the bus driver hollered as he closed the door behind me. And that was the worst thing he could have said. I was full up with foulness again. As I stood there at the end of the drive, though, I realized I'd been so busy thinking about school all day I hadn't spent any time planning for what I'd do when I got home. All I knew was that I didn't want to talk to anybody because I didn't have one nice thing to say anywhere in me. I did have a whole lot of things to say that could get me into trouble, though, especially if Daddy heard about them. But there was no Daddy watching from the barn, and Mama wasn't at the stop or looking out the window. I was hoping she wouldn't be up and around when I got inside either, because I knew that if Mama was there, she'd want to talk. "How was your day, Ida B?" she'd say. Then she'd look at me with those tired eyes, and even my foulness would be stilled for a moment. I'd stand there with my mouth closed tight, my lips zipped, glued, and stapled together, to keep the angry words that were banging to get out and have a go at Mama from escaping. But she'd ask me again, "Baby, how was your day?" And my heart would not be able to pass up 2 invitations to have it say. Those words would come shooting out my mouth, heading straight for Mama. Words like, "What do you care?" and "You broke your promise." And "Have you seen my parents? Because mine disappeared and I'm living with 2 people who don't keep their word and don't care about me and are just plain mean." Words that would make Mama's eyes cry, and then maybe mine too, and land me up to my armpits in the deepest pile of trouble ever. I needed a plan for avoiding Mama, so I walked up the drive real slow to give myself a chance to come up with a good one. By the time I got to the front door, I knew what I would do. "Hello," I'd say very politely if Mama was waiting for me. Then when she asked me how my day was, I'd tell her, "Could you please excuse me? I have a desperate need that must be taken care of immediately." I would cross my legs like you do when a certain kind of necessity strikes, make my face squinch up like I was about to burst, hobble up the stairs, spend 3 minutes and 22 seconds in the bathroom, and flush the toilet twice even to make it sound real. Then I would go to my room and make a sign that read, "Mildly sick, but not so much she needs her temperature taken. Tired child inside. Please do not disturb until morning." At the bottom I'd draw a picture of Lulu sitting right in front of my door, baring her teeth and hissing, "Stay out, please." That way, I wouldn't be telling any full-blown lies, and I wouldn't get myself in so much hot water that I'd be Ida B. stew for dinner. I opened the front door just a crack and peeked around the corner to see what was waiting for me. But there was no Mama in the big chair or anywhere else, so I crept the rest of the way in, closed the door so quietly behind me, and tiptoed over to the stairs. And just as I put my right foot on the bottom step, smelling freedom but not quite tasting it, who should come running out from the kitchen, jumping and barking and throwing spit every which way, like he hadn't seen me in 20 years, but Rufus. Every single plan I'd made went scampering over to the fireplace, shot up the chimney, and disappeared into the sky. Ida B, I heard Mama calling from the kitchen. Yes, ma'am, I said back while I wiped my face with the back of my hand to remove some of Rufus's slimy mouth juice and gave him a none too pleased glare. Come on out to the kitchen, honey. I need to go upstairs and get started on my homework, is what my brain thought would give me the best chance for escape, so I tried it out. But another voice answered me back. It was the deputy of doom and disaster. Ida B, come to the kitchen, Daddy commanded. And that was the end of hope. I put my head down, dragged my backpack behind me, getting ready for nothing good. As I walked into the kitchen, I could feel the two of them, one on either side of me. I decided I'd let them begin any conversing that had to occur. Are you hungry, Ida B? Do you want something to eat? Mama asked. No, thank you, I said. Honey, Mama tried again, do you want to sit down and talk a bit? I'm feeling kind of tired, I told the table, and I need to use the bathroom, I added, saving a sliver of my previous plan. I started to turn around to get on my way. Hold on, Ida B, I heard the master of mercilessness say. I froze, just able to see the hallway and my path to liberation out of the corner of my left eye. How was your day? Daddy asked. Well, it took me a minute to get over the shock that Daddy, of all people, would ask me that particular question. Especially since I was sure he did not want to hear Ida B's 110% true and brutally honest response. And now I faced a dilemma. I had to find a way to answer that inquiry without compromising my heart's resolution, while avoiding the temper of a daddy who would not appreciate anything sounding close to rude. So this is what I came up with, which felt better than any of my other options, but not anywhere near fine. It was okay, I said. But in my head, okay looked like this. O-K. Those letters stood for outrageous catastrophe. And I know it's the wrong spelling, but it was the best I could do at that particular moment. Then I looked straight at Daddy and said, Can I please be excused now? And the words I used might not have been angry, but it was in my voice and flashing out of my eyes. Ida B, Daddy started, already loud and pulling himself up straight. He was leaning forward so he could be a little closer if he needed to get a hold of me. Mama stopped him, though. Evan, she said, sad enough she didn't have to be loud. Let her go. Daddy kept staring at me, but he leaned back after a minute or two. And I walked pretty fast up to my room. And that's where we're going to leave off for today. To get ready for my next program. If anyone is interested, it's an adult program for about found poetry, particularly erasure poetry that we are doing at 7 p.m. this evening. That I'm doing with my colleague Susanna. You can email me for the invite at mwalsh@islandfreelibrary.org if you want to join up. And I will be back tomorrow with some more of Ida B. Okay?